Hi everyone, and welcome to Breaking the Cycle Two-Step Forward podcast with me, Chris Tuck, and the lovely
Beverley Ann. Hello.
Hi everyone. So today we are talking about unintended consequences, and with regards to us being listened to and us listening to others. And we're going to do it from a personal perspective as always, and from a professional perspective as well. So, Beverley, what are we going to discuss in regards to all of this? You kick it off.
Well, I think it's important, we've talked about triggers and everything, and we've talked about, our last podcast was about having a voice. And that is so important, but it's also, when you have the voice, how it's being received, how it's being heard, and who's hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because with any scenario, we see things from the place that we're standing. So if you think of a circle and there's something in the middle, it all depends where we're seeing it as to how we receive it. And we don't often know. So for instance, where we use our voice and we speak out, whether it be years ago, whether it be now, whether it be to someone personal or to a professional body, their reaction will be very different. And sometimes how we take that reaction will be different.
Yeah, a very complicated area, this, but we were talking about it from the perspective of having children as well, weren't we? Like grown-up children, and how maybe unintentionally our trauma that we've been through, even though we've gone above and beyond in our shoes, in our perspective, that we've protected our children, we've loved them, we've nurtured them, we've cared for them in our best way, our way, there's still a trauma impact passed down the line, especially if they've gone through stuff themselves, and that can complicate how we are listened to, and all of that. There's so much in that, isn't there?
Well, there's emotions. Let's be honest, there's emotions.
Yeah.
So let's go back to what you first said about, they hear about our trauma. So I know that when my children were very young, I was like a lion. I did everything to keep it away, even into being interviewed, etc. I didn't want it coming into their life. But then when I found my voice to speak out, that's why I have a different name, because it's their choice if they want to speak out or not in different experiences. But also, imagine that it's someone you love, and then as you get older, you find out some really horrible information that happened to them. It's very hard to comprehend. And then that's sometimes when they have their own experiences in whatever, they feel that sometimes it invalidates how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And it really is not intentional.
No.
And they think, oh, well, they've gone through that, so what I've gone through is nothing. And actually,
it's almost that comparison, even though we're not about comparing one person's trauma to another, because that's just completely not, it's a no-go area. Your trauma is your trauma, my trauma is my trauma, their trauma is their trauma. It impacts us and we need to deal with that. There is no comparison. But for an immature mind, for a young person, they won't have the learning or the understanding. That's what we're not doing, but they may be doing that.
Absolutely. But also, do you remember the days? I mean, I remember, years and years ago, when I'd read stories or hear stories about what other people have been through, I'd think, wow, how the hell did they get through that? Because I had a normal upbringing.
Oh my goodness, what a brain.
Yeah. So, when you're coming from that end, put our hands up,
we all do it.
Understand,
we all compare.
because you only know what you know from what you've experienced.
Yeah.
So then we now have a different grasp on it.
Yeah.
But they're coming from a different angle, and
a younger person. Yeah.
Yeah. So And it doesn't matter about age as well, because it's,
Yeah,
as we've said before, it's where you are in your
where you are.
understanding.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, I'm in my late 50s. Can't believe that.
Nor can
and
I, Beverley.
but I so admire, you know, someone in their 20s being able to come forward and find a voice to share
Yeah.
their experiences, because I think, wow,
Yeah.
I would never have found the words. I'd have had too much guilt, shame,
Yeah.
etc. And I just admire that so much. What about you, Chris, on that?
I just find, as we know, we've still got upheaval in our own personal lives, which we're not going to discuss, but it brings about these conversations in a different way, and it brings us new insight, doesn't it, into being listened to and what that looks like, and actually being heard. And the same for maybe our loved ones when they come to a place of dealing with their stuff. They're going to have that emotion coming to the fore, and they may be taking it out on us unintended, because they feel safe to be able to do that, because we've always given them the space to communicate and connect. When they're in a happy place and when they're in a not so good place, they will almost come out fighting, showing their emotions against you, yet you then get triggered by all of that, and then you've got to deal with that yourself as the parent or the caregiver. And it's so difficult, it's so complicated.
It so is, and that's why, for anyone listening, you know, we can talk about it professionally, but we know what it's like as well personally, because being a parent is not easy.
No.
You know, it has its own complexities anyway. But that also resonates into other relationships, you know, with our friends, with our partners, you know, whether it be husband, wife, girlfriend, whatever, you know, it resonates out. So what can seem really small to someone can really explode. And it's not that we want people to walk around being very careful, but it's a learning, as we said. How are we listening to this other person? How am I actually finding the words to communicate back?
And am I putting my own stuff onto them? Because you know, I'm in therapy at the moment, and basically I've been advised to shut up, not keep explaining my knowledge and my understanding on other people. It's just to shut up and be there and just listen. And I find it so difficult because I've been told, and I agree, that I'm a fixer.
Oh,
that's what I do, 100%.
Isn't that what parents do?
And then life will be okay. I've been told that, Chris, you're human. You cannot fix everybody and every situation. So just step back and listen. And no matter what you want to do, I can help you with that. No, just let them find their own way.
And I put my hands up to that, because I've had that conversation. I remember my daughter saying to me a couple of years ago, I just want you to listen. And I'm like, I apologize for that. I am listening. But as a mum, when you're really upset, I want to put my arms around you and make it all right for you. Which I know professionally isn't the right thing. So I bet there's people listening now nodding. So that's the hardest part, is okay, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. But then it's also, and this comes about balance, because when is it right for you to use your voice to say, actually, I hear you, but now this is what I need to say as well, because I am a human being, you know, I may be a mum, I may be a, you know, a partner, but this is who I am.
But see, that's where the fine line is, isn't it? It's like you shutting up and listening and not giving your advice. But if that person is sharing something with you, like their anger's coming onto you, for example, and then that triggers you, if you're then silenced, that's going to have an impact on you. So it's almost like, because you are the adult and more mature and more further along in your recovery, you need to be able to allow them to vent, and you to actually, I'm triggered, but you to just calm down, step away. And then when the emotion's gone out of the situation, you then both step back in and have a conversation that's void of the explosive emotion, whatever that is, so that you can both feel heard and acknowledged and both move on.
And that is absolutely spot on. However, there's something else that we're missing out here, and I'm going to put my hands up here. The courage to be vulnerable, the courage to be able to say as a parent, I don't know all the answers. I don't know.
Carry on.
I don't know how to make you happy. I don't know how to fix this for you.
But we're going to work with it, at it together, and we will get the answers, whatever that looks like. I think that's maybe the key. Yeah.
And it's like anything, we're in a professional situation, that's different. When it's personal and it's emotive, and all
you want to do is fix it.
So one of the other areas we were looking at was the professional side, as in, for instance, when you're disclosing to a doctor, a professional person, or the police, or
even a significant person in your life.
And you're finding that courage to speak, and then you get a phone call because there's an update or something's going to happen, or there's a change.
So you mean if your case is in the criminal justice system? Just make that clear. Okay.
And you'll be going about your place, you'll be doing your self-care, doing what you're doing, maybe you're working, maybe you're outside, maybe you're shopping, and suddenly you get a phone call, and that phone call will be about some very heavy personal stuff, and you don't get asked, are you free to talk?
No. Or have you got support?
Or where are you at the moment? Can I speak to you another time? And that's no reflection on that person, because you are a case number, you're a patient, whatever, and they're just thinking, oh, I've got to do this, that task.
I've got a job to do.
But I can tell you a number of times that's happened. They tell me this news, they put the phone down, and you're literally just left in this world as if they're like, hold on, what did I need in my shopping? But inside, the emotional turmoil has just floored you.
Well, a bomb's gone off in your brain and in your body, hasn't it? Like, I don't know about you, but when we got the no further action, it was just like, what? No, that can't be right. And then you start wanting to ask questions, and then it was like, well, no, we can't speak to you about that. You need to go down the appeals procedure. And you've got 1,001 questions, you've got a tsunami of emotions, and you've got nowhere to put it, no one to speak to, no one to question. And it's just like, as you said, you've got normal world activities going on in front of you, but inside you're like, as I said, that bomb's gone off, and you're like, what do you do?
So you've heard them, you've heard what they've got to say, but it's how it's being received. And that information, how it is to you. Personally, I would rather have a message to say, we need to speak to you, when's an appropriate time, or an email.
And also, please make sure that you do have support around you, whatever that looks like. But then that in itself, they are between a rock and a hard place a little bit, because you've got that scenario going on. But then if you read that text or that message, you received it, you're then going to be really anxious and fired up about, oh, what's wrong? So you are going to get a bit of an emotional reaction either way.
Absolutely. And we're not saying that, we don't live in a Disney world. So by explaining this and sharing this, when other people are hearing it, they're like, I'm normal. I really am normal. I'm not the only one. And that is a horrible feeling when you think you're the only one. It's very isolating.
Yeah. So we're talking about like being in the criminal justice system and receiving news, and often the person on the other end that's giving you that news that is really explosive for you, unless they're trauma informed, and a lot of them are not trauma informed, they don't understand that your anger at them, they might take personally, but at the end of the day, it's not personal. It's your reaction is because of the information that's been given to you, and you wanted a different outcome and you didn't get that outcome, and yet they're receiving your anger or whatever emotion you are showing, and they need to understand, like we need to understand if it's something to do with our children, for example, and they are trying to express how they're feeling, that it ain't personal. And my therapist said, you know, when people get angry in the session, she's got to take a step back and go, they're not angry at you, they're angry at the situation. So we've all got to learn to do that to a certain extent, haven't we?
Absolutely. And listening is such a key part, and it's not easy. No. It's not easy. It is a learning, because the listening as well is about, so another thing is we all have different meanings. So you could say something, and if I was really listening, I'd want to then feed back and say, is this how I've understood it?
Right. Yeah.
Because that's what we do when we're in a professional scenario.
Yeah. Isn't it really funny though, Bev, that we know this as a professional person, but as soon as the emotion comes in, well, it's not funny, it's scientific. When the emotion comes in, you're triggered, your alarm system goes offline, you're not in cognition, so you can't think about it and be reasonable and go da 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 da. You're like just,
because your body is reacting, as we've spoken, it goes into reaction.
Yeah.
So and we can't change that. What we can change is when our body does that and we feel it and we recognize it, we take a minute to calm our body down, and then we're able to say, okay, this is
the brain's gone back into cognition mode because we've calmed it all down.
And we have, and that's where we have the tools to learn how to do that. So you know, so what are some of your tools for doing that?
As I found out this week, I had to literally bite my tongue, shut my mouth, count to 10 in my head, breathe, and walk away.
Yeah, so that's mine. Mine's breathing and walking, even going outside. Yeah, so that's why
I had to literally separate myself from a said person.
Yeah, and that's one of my key things as well, because what I need to do then is walk away. It's nothing against that person, it's my way to also not feel closed in, that I have a choice.
But it's breaking that cycle, isn't it, of being in a, what's the word, a situation that's toxic, and all you're going to do, if that person's offline and in emotional mode, they'll just be firing away, and then that triggers you and you're going to be offline, you're going to be firing away, so that ain't going to get anyone anywhere. So someone has to break it, someone has to change that dynamic. So walking away, counting to 10, breathing, and then coming back, or leaving it for a little while and then coming back to have the conversation, is the only way.
Yeah, and for me, there are times when I've tried to deal things at that time in as calm a manner as possible, but often I given a choice, I like to be able to walk away, reflect. I'm a reflective person.
Me too.
And really look at both sides and then think, hold on a minute, and listen to my instinct, and not react, but listen to my instinct and think, okay, what is it that I'm feeling? What is it that I want to be, want to say? And how is it I want to be heard? Because one thing we also don't know is we can never assume how the other person's going to hear us.
No. So you almost need to check into that person and say, how have you understood what I've just told you? Because classic example of that, when I was 15 and about to leave home because I couldn't take it anymore, I explained my situation to an adult who I thought could step in and help. And I shared some of the stuff, not all of the stuff. And I thought that they were going to respond in a certain way, and they didn't. Their advice was, go home, say sorry, and everything will be okay. And I'm like, I just spent 90 minutes explaining to you a lot of stuff, and that's your response. So that shut me down and silenced me. And I never went back to that person, even that person was in my life for a very, very long time, still is. And it was only when I had therapy, when I had my first lot of therapy, that it was explained to me exactly what you just said, that that person thought they were doing the right thing. They thought they were giving me the right advice. They thought that because of my age, and they didn't know about abuse, coercive control, they didn't know about impact. And it was only when I went back later on and I sort of like said, because you didn't respond the way I thought you was going to respond, I then held a grudge against you for decades. I just did, because I didn't get the help that I needed and you didn't understand me. But then it was explained to me that they didn't have the tools to understand or help. So when I sort of like said, I'm sorry for the blame that I laid at your door and the grudge that I've held, they then turned around and said, I'm really sorry because I didn't understand what you was actually telling me and the grave consequences of not responding in the right way. If I had understood the situation as it was, I would have stepped in and I would have helped.
Yeah.
So look at, that's a classic example.
Exactly. And I will say it's very touching, and I'm really, really pleased to hear that both of you were able to find a way and move on from it, you know.
Yeah.
Listen to each other. You listened to each other, heard each other, and moved on. And that is the outcome that we really want every time. We can't guarantee that.
No.
So sometimes it takes time, and time can really make a difference to really work through that emotion.
But it was because I was ready to have a frank, open conversation without emotion. And so was this other person. So I was able to connect on a level to sort it out. But I've never been able to have that kind of conversation with my mum, with my dad. So again, as you said, you might not be able to sort it out. But if you can, there can be healing on both sides.
Oh, if you can, it's wonderful. It really is.
No, it's not always possible.
And it's not. So it's about being, and we're going to come full circle here. It's about saying what you have to say in the best way, having the courage to be vulnerable, and it is courageous because you don't know how it's been received. But knowing that you can stand in, and I'm going to use a word that I never used to understand years ago. I'm going to say stand in your own power of being who you are. And when I mean power, I don't mean that in a controlling sense. It's saying, this is who I am. This is actually how I feel. And regardless of how you react to me, this is my truth. And it means, sadly, that some people will step away. Well, actually, part of our healing is making sure that we move forward with the people that will support us and be there to help us heal. And it means sometimes that you do lose certain people.
I understand that. But I also just wanted to bring it back a little bit as well. Understanding that you might get triggered and then be angry at the person that's angry at you. If you don't step away and if you do explode, you might say things you will regret. You might make the situation worse. You might make that younger person feel really, really inadequate, invalidated, So I think as the adult, even though we might be hurting and we might not be as far on in our journey, we do need to recognize that we do need to lead the conversation, the incident, whatever's happening, and we do need to be the bigger person. Because I know in certain situations that an adult might just go, no, I'm right, you're in the wrong,
Yeah.
And then that younger person just gets silenced, whereas the adult needs to be the one that actually goes, yeah, you know what, I might be in the right, but let's look at the situation, as you said, from both perspectives, and actually let me recognize that that younger person hasn't got maybe the maturity I've got, doesn't have the understanding or the knowledge at the moment, and that I should not be using that against them. I should be actually stepping away and going, okay, I hear you, deal with your own stuff, and then go back. And it's not easy.
And I'd like to say as well, I mean, family dynamics is huge, you know, and I had this with a sibling, and again, I'm not going to say any names.
Yeah.
And the challenge was with both of us, you had two siblings who had been really close, but we both had a lot of stuff to sort out, and we kept clashing, and there was feelings, especially where we were in the social care system, and I asked to be fostered out. I didn't realize the impact that would have on my sibling who felt abandoned by me.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Whereas I hadn't even considered that.
No. But why would you?
I was 15. I wanted to be part of a normal family, and I felt that that person didn't care if I was there or not at that time either, but I was struggling with myself to get forward. And so you can see how two people see it very differently, and that caused major issues, and we didn't talk for a long time. Then we came back together, and it was still very rocky. Whereas now we've come back, but we've come back from that other place. That other place where we both had time to work on ourselves. We're both in our recovery, whatever stage. And we, you know, we're able to say, you know, I love you, I care about you, you know, sometimes I'm sorry, you know, I'm that wasn't my intention. And that other person's able to think, well, actually, I can see that you didn't leave me. Do you see what I mean? And often when we're really angry, it's that frustration. I'm not being heard. We're reacting. So we've had another intense 30 minutes. I really hope that whoever's listening, we have
some of that mayhem might resonate with you.
And that's what we like. We don't go from a structured agenda. We agree what we're going to talk about. We talk about it a little bit before we start filming, and then we let it flow, because that's the way to have these challenging conversations.
And something always pops up, doesn't it? Something like things you've forgotten about, and it always just pops up.
Yes. So again, if anyone wants to leave a comment, please leave a comment. We've started to get people to leave in comments. If not, contact us by email. You're watching this on YouTube, and if you go into the box underneath the video, it will give you our email addresses. So please do contact us. You know, we know how it, you know, it is mind-boggling at times, and it's important to get that space. So for me, I know that I'm going to go for a walk in a minute because I want to clear my head. What about you, Chris?
I'm going to stick the TV on and watch some trashy TV just to take my mind off of everything. Yeah, and I don't blame you. I'm watching the reruns of All Creatures Great and Small. Oh, wow. I'm watching Netflix, a series called I say Marcella, but I think she's called Marcella. It's brilliant.
Okay. I'll have a look at that. I'll add that afterwards.
All right then. Okay, everyone, we have to say goodbye now. Bev, your biggest take from today for you?
My biggest take is actually being able to talk about this and realize I am a human being. I cannot be perfect. And I absolutely do everything with my best intention. And I can see how sometimes my best intentions can be seen wrongly by other people as well.
Yeah. And again, yeah, just having the space to discuss this and learn from stuff. Yeah. I think information, learning is the only way to grow and be the best that we can be.
And allow each other to have that space to grow.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
huge. And what about yourself? What's your key thing?
I just said it.
I know, sorry, it's because I didn't introduce it to you, so I didn't want you to feel that.
That's fine. No, but that is my biggest take, is just to, if a relationship that's broken down, maybe, if it means a lot to you, go back and try and find common ground again. But if it doesn't mean anything to you and you've tried to fix it and it hasn't worked, walk away. Don't waste any more time on it.
Absolutely. And sometimes in that walking away, it gives that breathing space for each.
Yeah.
And sometimes you may stay apart, but actually sometimes you'll find your way back.
Yeah. So good luck with all of your complicated relationships out there. And please feel free to share this video and all of the others. Remember, this is podcast 21.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris.
Right. Bye.
Bye.